At a family party, my 13-year-old niece giggled. Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, no one would notice, while opening the $850 phone I bought her. Everyone laughed but me. I smiled, shut down every payment and bill, moved out that night, and left behind a black backpack. Inside, they found everything. So, my mom drops this line on me: if you vanished tomorrow, nobody would even blink. My niece, who's just 13, bursts into giggles as she unwraps the $850 phone I got her. Her hands are all dainty, but her words? Sharp like a knife. We're in the middle of our living room, surrounded by the endless chatter of family, like 30 voices all scrambling to be the loudest. There's a birthday cake chilling on the kitchen table, candles still unlit, but I can already feel the heat in my chest. My sis, Lindsay, doesn't even lift her eyes from her phone. She's sitting there with this smirk, like she's got the verdict she wanted. Mom's busy in the kitchen, acting like she didn't hear, but I catch the slight shrug of her shoulders, like she's silently nodding along. Dad? He doesn't even bother with subtlety. He laughs, tips his beer, and says, well, she's got a point. The whole room erupts with laughter. My cousins are grinning, and even Uncle Gary, who maybe recognizes me from family dinners, snorts into his drink. And there I am, planted like a fool. The same fool who pays, who fixes things, yet never quite measures up. Thanks for the phone, Uncle, my niece chirps as she cozies up to her mom, already absorbed in her new screen. I watch her, heart pounding, face heating up, and suddenly the room feels like it's closing in. But I just nod, 'cause, well, that's my routine, nodding, smiling, pretending like it's all good. Finally, Lindsay looks up and our eyes meet. There's this split second where I see it, a flicker of amusement, satisfaction, like she's been waiting for this moment where I'm left speechless and embarrassed. All right, everyone, let's cut the cake, Mom calls out, trying to cut through the tension with cheer, but the bitterness sticks with me. I drift into the kitchen, leaning against the counter as the crowd gathers around the cake. Candles get lit, wishes are made, and I'm just watching, fists clenched, jaw tight. Deep down, something colder stirs inside me. My phone's in my pocket. A couple of taps and everything I've set up for them, bills, subscriptions, credit lines for Lindsay, for Mom, for Dad, poof, it's all gone. My fingers move on their own, like this decision was waiting all along. Just like that, the noise fades into the background. The room spins with familiar faces that suddenly feel like strangers. They laugh, they celebrate, and I'm not really there. I'm just the ghost who bankrolls them, but not anymore. I slip out without a word, and of course, nobody notices. My niece was right about that. Instead of heading home, I make a beeline for my place, toss a few essentials into a bag, and stop. The old black backpack in the corner of my closet catches my eye. Tonight, it's got a purpose. I load it up, but not with what they'd expect. Back at the house, it's still a noisy chaos. I slide in, drop the backpack by the stairs, and slip out again. This time, I'm truly gone. They'll notice eventually, but by then, I'll just be a memory. But inside that backpack, they'll find something to ponder. The silence didn't last long. I half expected some drama, but what I got was fireworks. Next morning, I'm jolted awake by someone banging on my apartment door. No gentle knocks, just fists pounding away. Dad's voice booms, full of fury, "Open up. You think you can just do this?" I stay quiet, watching the door like it might fly off its hinges any second. "I know you're in there. You think you're smarter than us? Better?" His voice cracks, laced with anger and maybe a hint of fear. I don't play along. Eventually, the banging stops, and I hear him stomp away, cursing as his car door slams. But this isn't over, not by a long shot. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzes. A text from Mom: "How could you do this to your family?" No response from me. An hour later, Lindsay tries calling. Her name lights up my screen 6 times in a row, but I just let it ring. Finally, she texts me: "You think you're clever? Think we can't manage without you? Fine, see how you last without a family." I read it, and I can't help but smile. Is that supposed to be a threat or a promise? But the real storm hits that evening. I'm stepping out of the shower when I hear a key in the lock. I freeze. Nobody should have a key to my place. Nobody except Dad. The door bursts open, and in he storms, red-faced and sweaty. So there we were. Dad was standing there with this angry look on his face, and Mom was right behind him, eyes all wide and frantic. "You really think you can just shut me out like that?" Dad yelled. I stood my ground, calm but cold, telling him to leave. "Get out. Seriously, this is who you are now. Mom's voice got all high-pitched and panicky, saying I was abandoning them after they raised me. No, you used me, I shot back, leaning against the kitchen counter while drying my hair. Big difference, Mom. Dad tried to get closer, fists all tight. You're just a thankless little troublemaker, he spat at me. Go ahead, try it, I dared him, calm as ever. We both knew he wouldn't, he was all talk, never a fighter. Just someone who shouted to hide his fear. Mom's voice broke, telling me the cards weren't working anymore and Lindsay couldn't pay her bills. It's all gone? She asked. I nodded. Yep, everything I paid for and managed is done. Dad let out this bitter laugh. You think you're all that? Think we actually need you? I shrugged, reminding them they'd broken into my place just to beg. Beg? Really? He snarled, but before he could continue, I cut him off. Enough, I said, slicing through his rant. I'm done. Mom tried to reach out, saying they were my family, all I had. All you have, I corrected. I'm done being your safety net, your go-to fix. Dad's face twisted in annoyance. You little pest, he called me, but I held up a finger. Out. Now, Mom whispered that I couldn't do this, that it was cruel. I laughed at that, saying real cruelty was them telling me I was worthless while happily spending my money. Dad moved forward again, but stopped himself. Shoulders sagged, he muttered, You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back. I won't, I assured him, voice firm as steel. They slammed the door as they left, but I knew this wasn't over. The next day, they tried another approach. Lindsay showed up at my office, looking pale and upset. My boss seemed confused, then awkward as Lindsay waved at me. I stayed put, pretending not to see. She started talking to the receptionist, her voice rising, hands shaking until security let her out. But I knew she'd try again. That evening, another knock. It was my landlord. There's a bit of a situation, he said, looking awkward. My family was downstairs causing a scene. Tell them to leave or I'll call the police, he warned. But they're your family, he added. Not anymore, I corrected. I watched from the window as they shouted and waved, eventually being escorted away by security. I knew them too well, their persistence was unmatched. Somewhere in the house I'd left behind, a black backpack was waiting for them to open, to see how far I was willing to go. The quiet was short-lived, though. They didn't let up, and I could feel the storm brewing. I ignored their calls, texts, and heartfelt voicemails, letting work and life fade into the background as I enjoyed the silence. But I wasn't naive, I knew they wouldn't stop. It started with Lindsay's angry messages, blaming me for everything. Then came Mom's tearful pleas through voicemail, urging me to rescue the family. Finally, Dad's turn, first with angry shouts and threats, then cooler, trying to lure me in. Son, let's settle this like men. No drama, just us, he said. Our team's got a game coming up, come on, let's talk it out. It felt like a trap, but I agreed anyway. I wanted closure. At the stadium, the noise was unreal, cheers, screams, the whole chaotic thing. Dad was in section 12, row F, with the seats empty around him. He waved when he saw me, one hand holding onto that black backpack of mine. I headed over, each step measured, eyes on him. He looked like he thought he'd won something, that crooked smile on his face. Surprised I called you? He shouted over the din, gesturing to an empty seat. Finally ready to talk man to man, huh? I settled in, gaze steady on the backpack. Is that what this is about? I asked. Oh, it's more than just that, he said, leaning in, voice low and conspiratory. You thought you could run and cut us off, but you left something behind. So there we were, sitting there with tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. My fingers were tapping away on this old backpack, trying to keep my cool. Guess what? We found something, he said, acting all high and mighty. And we know the truth now. I was like, know what? Trying to stay as chill as the biting wind that was whipping across the field. Your secrets, your lies. You think you're squeaky clean? Better than us? His voice was sharp, almost like he was spitting out the words. You've been hiding stuff. All those times you acted like some kind of hero, I should have seen through it. I almost laughed at the thought. Go on then, open it. Show me what you think you know. But his eyes flickered with something between fear and rage. Don't play games, he snapped. I don't need to open it. I already know about your sneaky ways, pretending to be a good son while stashing away your secrets. Stash? I leaned back, feeling the coldness of the metal seat pressing against me. The only thing in there is the truth. Meanwhile, the crowd around us was going wild over the home team's score, But in our little corner, it was just silence and tension, my hand shaking on the backpack. "You're bluffing," he muttered. "Trying to make me doubt myself, but it's over. We're telling everyone what kind of person you are, how you ditched your family." I just pointed to the field and said, "Go ahead. Tell them how I paid for Lindsay's rent for 2 whole years. How I covered your gambling debts when you blew half your pension. How I bought that phone for your granddaughter right before she decided I was nobody." His face went dark. "Shut up. No, let's lay it all out, Dad. You've got a backpack full of evidence of what I've done for you and everything you took. And you think you've got the upper hand?" His grip on the backpack tightened so much his knuckles turned white. "Don't talk to me like that." "Like what?" I asked, leaning forward with a steady voice but eyes on fire. "Like the useless piece of furniture you always treated me as? Like your personal ATM?" "Shut up," he shouted, standing up and drawing attention from the rows behind us. "Sit down," I said with icy calmness, and for a split second, I saw fear in his eyes. He hated me, sure, but more than that, he was afraid of losing control. Or what? He forced a laugh, but it was thin and desperate. "You gonna hit your own father? You think anyone here will side with you? You think they'll side with you?" I gestured to the crowd, a sea of strangers uninterested in his drama. "You're just an angry old man with a bag of debts. They don't know me, but they don't need to." His face contorted, and his voice dropped to a snarl. "You selfish jerk." I smiled. "I was your lifeline. Now you're drowning without me." He swung at me, his hand trembling and aimed for my face. But I didn't budge, didn't flinch. He wanted a reaction, some scandal to prove I was the bad guy in his story. But I just stared back, unblinking, and his fist stopped inches from my face, quivering. "I should have left you on the streets," he whispered, voice shaky. "You were always a parasite." "Funny," I whispered back, leaning in close enough to smell the stale beer on his breath. "That's exactly how I've always seen you." Something in him broke. His hand dropped, and his shoulders slumped. The crowd's cheers turned thunderous, masking the collapse of whatever pride he had left. I snatched the backpack from him with ease. He didn't even resist. "You want to know what's in here?" I asked loudly enough for the nearby folks to hear. "Everything I did for you, every dime, every sacrifice." People started watching, some whispering, some recording on their phones. "You want the truth?" I unzipped the backpack and pulled out a pile of papers. "There it is. Proof of how I propped you up, paid your bills, saved your house from foreclosure twice." His face went pale. "And you want to talk about betrayal? You betrayed me the day you turned me into your personal ATM. The day you laughed when they said I was nothing." "Stop," he whispered, looking small and sinking into his seat. "No, you wanted a scene, you got it." I tossed the papers at his feet, watching them scatter like dead leaves down the steps. I turned and started walking up the steps, leaving behind the staring faces and whispers. You can't just leave," he shouted, his voice cracking. But I didn't stop, didn't look back. For the first time, his words were powerless. They didn't stop trying at first. The day after the stadium showdown, when Dad's pride lay in tatters on those cold metal seats, my phone blew up like crazy. Call after call. Messages flooded in, accusations, pleas, threats, a desperate cycle in familiar voices. I ignored it all. Dad was the first to crack. His calls shifted from angry to pleading within hours. "We can talk this out," he lied. "I'll forget everything. Let's be a family." But I didn't answer. Then it was Mom's turn. Her texts were full of guilt. Stuff like, "You're breaking our hearts. We didn't mean it. Family is everything." Honestly, I couldn't even bring myself to read all of them. Then Lindsay chimed in with her messages that were like pure poison. "You're a coward. A selfish, worthless coward. You've ruined everything." Then she switched it up with, "Please, just talk to me." I was scared. "Don't do this." But I went ahead and did it anyway. I gave them the silent treatment. That was my answer, my way of getting back at them. At first, they thought I was bluffing, like I was just playing some cruel joke. But as days turned into weeks and the ignored bills started stacking up, they finally realized I wasn't messing around. They couldn't reach me anymore. Even the landlord called me, all shaky, to tell me they hadn't paid rent. I just told him that wasn't my problem. Mom sent me a picture of them sitting in the dark with just one candle lighting up the room, saying they had nothing left. I didn't even think twice before deleting it. One evening, after a grocery run, I spotted my dad lurking near my building, pacing back and forth. He looked pale and shaky, like fear had replaced the usual fire in his eyes. When he saw me, his face lit up with this weird hope. He hurried over, saying, "Listen, you can't do this. You're my son." But I just kept moving. To me, I was just his wallet. He blocked my path, his voice cracking, saying, "We raised you. We gave you everything. But they'd used me." I looked him in the eye and said, "And now you've got nothing." As I tried to walk past him, he grabbed my arm, growling, "You don't get to do this. You think you're better than us? You think you can just walk away?" I knew I could. I pulled my arm free, and kept going. He tried swinging at me, but it was a weak attempt. I didn't even flinch. His fist barely brushed my shoulder, more of a sad shove than a punch. He stumbled, catching himself against the building, gasping. I muttered, "Pathetic." His face twisted with rage as he shouted, "You'll come crawling back. You always do. You're nothing without us." I laughed loudly, and it echoed down the street. I told him, I was nothing with you, and turned my back. I walked away and didn't look back. That night, I tossed my phone into a desk drawer. The messages and missed calls piled up, but I was untouchable. A week later, a letter arrived. In shaky handwriting, Mom pleaded, saying Dad was getting sick, Lindsay was losing her mind, and they were falling apart. She begged me to come home. I crumpled it without finishing. They were falling apart, and for once, I wasn't. I didn't change my number or hide. I just stopped being part of their world, and their world crashed without me. Lindsay's friends stopped calling. Mom's distant relatives, who'd send holiday cards, weren't bothering anymore. Dad lost his temper too much at work and got fired. But I didn't care. I just lived my life, cooked, slept, and walked without worrying about anyone needing my time, money, or anything else. They became just voices, echoes of a past I'd left behind while I moved on. Months went by and silence became my friend. I woke up when I wanted, ate without guilt, explored the city at my own pace, living freely in every quiet moment. Sometimes, I'd catch myself bracing for another buzz from panicky texts or guilt-trippy calls demanding I fix things. But it never came. I'd done the unthinkable. I let them go. Not buried in dirt, but in my life. Walking down Main Street one cool autumn morning, I passed all those places I used to spend lavishly on them, the cafe for Lindsay's birthday cakes, the boutique for gifts, the restaurant for family dinners where I was always the generous one. Now they were just ghosts of a past life. On the corner, a street musician played this soulful tune. His voice was rough yet authentic, strumming the guitar strings. It wasn't about love or heartbreak. It was about letting go. The world bustled around me as I stood still, soaking it in. When he finished, I tossed a 20 into his guitar case. He nodded, and I smiled, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. That was the difference now. I didn't need them. Never did. I walked on, each step a little lighter, each breath a little easier. As the sun set, painting the sky in warm hues, I felt it deep down, I was truly free.